morning, and welcome to the virtual Sunday service for Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Lake Norman. Our fellowship walks diverse paths, divine meaning and purpose, but we're united by our belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all and the obligation to express our faith through acts of justice and compassion. My name is Harvey Wigter. I've been an active member of the congregation since 2018, and I'm now honored to be the fellowship's current president. We start with our chalice lighting. This is from Albert Schweitzer and serves as a great introduction to our service. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who've lighted the flame within us. I'm pleased to tell you about our speaker, Reverend Doctor Ed Boye, whose email address is Hey Boy. Reverend Doctor Edward L. Boye is a United Methodist Minister who has served churches for 13 years in North Georgia. When he left the church ministry, Again Ministries was created to help establish a ministry for singles. Along with this ministry, he built a private practice in Clinical Pastoral Counseling and has served that for 26 years. He is married to Julia Purcell, and his busy son has 5 daughters. Ed is now retired and is living in Davidson. His message is entitled, The Delightful Light of Being. His message is about darkness, physically, psychologically, and emotionally being part of life. What are the sources of light, and how do we assess them in order to deal with the darkness? Should darkness always be tied to fear? And how do we source and magnify the power of light? And now, after a musical interlude from Mike Alec, I'll turn the pulpit over to Reverend Dr. Ed.
Good morning. Too bad we can't be together on this weird and spooky day. Probably appropriate for this group because you have allowed yourself to be captive of a very weird and spooky pastor. Although I guess he can't be too bad since he is named after an Irish saint. Sorry, Pat, you're such an easy target. Enough of that. It is obvious with all the pumpkins and skeletons and ghosts, spiders, gravestones, that we're celebrating the holiday Halloween. This particular holiday, the number one thing that we celebrate is what? Candy. We fuel the fires of ADHD behavior. What were we thinking? Bless those of you who have children, grandchildren, or yourselves with this diagnosis. I know because days after Halloween, the common response to me was, settle down. What's gotten into you? About 10 pounds of sugar, I guess. My poor parents didn't know there was a diagnosis at the time for hyperactive disorder. This aside, we do like holidays. They suggest time off from work, a change of pace, and doing something different and fun. This holiday, however, is different. We're celebrating, or at least focusing on, darkness, fear, and the dead. As kids, we dressed up in scary outfits, witches, monsters, skeletons, and would canvass the neighborhood to collect candy. When I was a kid during Halloween, there was always this testosterone-fueled dare among boys. I dare you to walk through the graveyard alone. No way, man, I'm not going in there, you do it. There is an element of fear of going near a cemetery, commonly called a graveyard. Why would we be fearful of a graveyard? It's the quietest and deadest place one could be. We're often looking for the peace and quiet from the maddening pace of life. Go sit on a gravestone. Yet comfort would probably evade us, especially in the evening. Our imagination plays with us. We hear sounds, see shadows, and have a general sense of unease. Put any one of us in a graveyard in the middle of a moonless night, and we're not going to be relaxed. Reminds me of a story that took place in a town where my dad served as a minister. The typical southern town with a courthouse in the middle, stores all around, church on one side and the tavern on the other side. One particular night, old Charlie, who spent more time in the tavern than he did the church except to sleep it off, left the tavern in somewhat of an unstable condition. He could still walk, barely. He shuffled across the square and decided to take the path around the church, through the graveyard, to his small house on the other side. Halfway through, he didn't see an open grave that had been dug for a funeral for the next day. As he staggered, one foot hit the edge of the hole and he fell in. He tried to crawl out, but to no avail. So he finally decided to give up and sit in the corner and someone would come along or he'd fall asleep and sleep it off. That same night, the town accountant, who had been working late, decided to take the same path. It was shorter than going around the graveyard. He also had the misfortune of falling in this grave, briefcase and all. The experience having shaken him up considerably, he frantically tried to crawl out without success because of the crumbling sides. About that time, old Charlie said, "Buddy, you ain't going to get out of here," but he did. Fear and darkness in graveyards can be a great motivator. The association with possibly dead coming alive has been passed down for centuries. The fear of darkness and death is fueled these days by the entertainment industry, focusing on zombies, The Walking Dead. There are movies and TV series and books on zombies. I've even heard of the millennials having a zombie race. I didn't know that happened because zombies always looked like they were going very slow. However, the origin of Halloween has been debated. Some hold on to the theory that it is a Christian holiday called All Hallows Day or All Saints Day to honor the saints, the martyrs, and the deceased. Others think it originated much earlier as a pagan holiday from Ireland. It signifies the end of harvest and preparation for the dark half of the year. Ancient burial mounds were opened, which were seen as portals to the other world, the afterlife. Whatever the origin, it seems that it was connected to the dead. Another reference to the phase about the downside of darkness is called the dark night of the soul. It is used to describe a period of time where there are deep feelings of depression, hopelessness, and heaviness that consumes us. It feels like we're dying or moving around in a dead body. You almost cannot breathe, like life is being sucked out of you. Most of you, I imagine, have had periods like this in your life. When I feel the dark night of the soul pressing down on me, I want to have the outlook of the little boy and the little girl who were struggling through a room full of horse manure. And instead of being disgusted and fearful and overwhelmed, they shouted out with glee, "With all this horse poop, there must be a pony in here somewhere." Looking for relief from the dark moments of life, I want my pony or horse to be able to ride out of this mess that I feel weighted down in. From personal experience, we cannot get out of the hole by ourselves. We are not created to be alone. We are connected even in the darkness. There's something bigger than ourselves present, and there's always someone willing to be with us. First, we have to be willing to share our pain. A child was crying during a lightning storm. His mother came into the room and asked, "What is he afraid of?" He said, "I'm scared of the dark and the storm." And she said, "Don't you know that God is with you?" He replied, "I know, but I want someone with skin on." We are social creatures, and like the child who wanted someone with skin on, we all want that. Even in the darkest moments, when we feel safer with someone who can relate to our suffering. Fear is magnified by withdrawing and believing no one can feel the despair like I do. Feelings of shame is probably the most prevalent reason that keeps us from sharing with others about our emotional and psychological pain. Our thoughts are, "I'm an adult. I should be in control and not falling apart because I fear the dark and storms of life." Yet, what is the first thing that someone says when they let their guard down or are overwhelmed by their pain and tears? "I'm sorry." There's no sorrow in being real and sharing the real you. When we take the risk of being vulnerable with our feelings and our fears, we find out that others aren't surprised or critical, but share their own vulnerable times. When I was going through my divorce, I finally shared it with the church I was serving at the time. After the service, people would come up to me and share that they too had gone through the pain and darkness of divorce. I felt less alone. I felt loved and supported. I grew up with a song that we sang in the church called "Love Lifted Me." This is the essence of the light that we need in our darkness. It is our call as human beings to seek and give love and understanding. Rather than fear these dark times, be with them. Learn from them. When we resist the dark night of the soul, we allow ourselves to be dragged down by the ego. The ego is defined as an inflated opinion of ourselves, our self-importance and ability. We are setting ourselves above others, apart from others. Sounds like a lonely place to me. There's a difference between being alone, which is needed at times, and loneliness, which feels like being disconnected, floating in darkness. Now, darkness is not all that bad. You can only see the stars in the darkness. Darkness cannot consume the beauty of the universe. And there's always some lightness in the darkness. This referenced in the Bible as the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. If we allow darkness to consume us through fear, we miss the beauty around us. It takes effort to find light in the darkness. Not just physical darkness and light, but darkness and light within. These dark, fearful moments in our lives are an opportunity to work through something that is keeping us from celebrating life. We have to be able to see beyond the intense moment of pain and rejection. When we dig down deep to the core of our being, our soul, we find that there is light and even understanding of the darkness that we have allowed to consume us. Joseph Campbell, the American professor of literature, says, "The black moment is the moment when the real message of transformation is going to come. At the darkest moment comes the light." George Lucas credited Campbell with inspiring Star Wars. The Force be with you. That transformation that creates that force of energy, of love, of light, of self-worth. So the Force be with you, even when you're facing the Darth Vaders of life. Our soul is full of energy, aliveness, light, and motivation to know and communicate with the cosmic forces of creation. The human body can put out an average of 100 watts or as much as 2,000 watts of energy. Just think of the light we could put out if 25 or 30 of us were in the same room focusing on love and compassion. That's 2,500 to 3,000 watts. 3,000 watts can light up 200 light bulbs. 3,000 watts can run a television set. Can't you see it now? All of us sitting around holding hands and someone at the end holding the plug, and we're all watching television. The light of a single person only illuminates a small area around that person. The light of two link with each other, suggesting a connection, plus being able to see a greater area around, therefore seeing aspects of life that are more than you see in just your own light. Learn to light a candle in the darkest moments of someone's life. Be the light that helps them see. It is what gives life its deepest significance. If only everyone would join worldwide, we could light up the whole planet and see things not only that we hide and are harmful to everyone, thus maybe be more motivated to correct them, and also be able to see the hidden beauty that we wouldn't normally see. Paraphrasing a sacred text, where two or three are gathered, displaying their light, the source of all light will be present. That is the more we see and feel when we open our hearts to each other and to the world in compassion. Gerald Jampasky wrote a book published in 2004 called "Love is Letting Go of Fear." Fear and love cannot reside in the same space at the same time, just as darkness and light also cannot occupy the same space. And I find it interesting that on this day of ghosts and goblins and zombies and vampires, that Bram Stoker, who wrote about the most famous vampire, Dracula, has this to say: "There are darknesses in life and there are lights, and you are one of the lights. the light of all lights. When we turn on the light, the darkness retreats. Light erases darkness. The poet Ralph Waldo Emerson states, "Light is the first of painters. There is no object so foul that intense light will not make it beautiful." I like that. The journey of most religions is that of seeking light. The core of every religion is found on the human species' innate desire to understand this invisible force. Even without a formal religious affiliation, every human is naturally drawn to light. For Christians, we find the light in Jesus. For Buddhists, the light is found in enlightenment, wisdom, understanding. Islam believe in God, who is the light of heaven and earth. The Hindus believe in Brahman, the light and the light of the universe. We as Unitarians have lighted the chalice as a symbol of that which stands for many meanings and related to light, all related to light, including the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope. This was significantly true during World War II. The symbol of the chalice and flame was used to stamp forms for Jews fleeing from the Nazi occupation to make their papers look official. It became a symbol signifying the leaving of the darkness of persecution to the light of freedom. We extinguish the light in the chalice at the close of worship with the reminder that those who have gathered now carry the warmth of human community and the light of truth with them throughout the week. The fire is not so much extinguished as born in the heart of each person. A new expression of Ralph Waldo Emerson called the spark, divine spark, the manifestation of divine possibility within each human soul. When we light the chalice in worship, we illuminate the world that we feel called upon to serve with love, sense of justice. Just think of all the chalices and candles lit during UU meetings. That is what attracted Julia and me to the UU Lake Norman Fellowship, the presence of warmth and compassion. We feel comfortable knowing that each one of you would have our back, would come to our aid, would shine your light on our darkness. Thank you for being and bless you for your beautiful presence of light. And remember, in your dark moments, there's a pony in there somewhere. Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is a little bit of a different version of This Little Light of Mine. There's a little flame inside us all. Sunshine bright, sunshine small. The rains will come and the waters rise. Don't you ever lose your light. In this life you will know love and pain, joy and sorrow. When it hurts, when times get hard, don't forget whose child you are. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, gonna let it shine. May you live each day with no regret. Make the most of every chance you get. Let your eyes get wide when you look at the stars. It's the same sense of wonder as a child's heart. With the ones you love, treasure the time. And for those who are gonna keep their memories alive, hold on to your dreams, don't ever let go. There's a fire inside, burning with hope. This little light of mine, oh, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, gonna let it shine, gonna let it shine. Oh, there will be days when you wanna give up. when the clouds settle in. But after the rain comes the sun. Don't you ever forget, one day there'll be no more pain. We'll return to where we came. So and then I'm gonna try to brave the dark in this little light of mine. Oh, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine. Oh, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, gonna let it shine. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Ed, for your message this morning. We are grateful. We are very grateful for your words today. And now for a few announcements. If you're a visitor, welcome. I'm so pleased that you chose to give our virtual service a try. If you've liked what you've heard so far and are wondering how to stay connected or get involved with our congregation, please reach out to our membership chair, Marge. Her email address can be found at the bottom of the screen. Our annual meeting is scheduled for November 21st at 11 o'clock after the service. We'll remind you again, but it's important that you make the extra effort to Zoom with us at that time. The agenda is the election of officers for 2022 and next year's budget. There will also be a time to ask questions about the future of the congregation and also for socializing. Members will receive ballots a few days before the annual meeting with a response deadline of 9:30 a.m. on the day of the meeting. I want to thank our candidates for their commitment to the congregation. They are Sandy McFeely for Vice President, Agnes Biare for Treasurer, Tracy Grimm for Secretary, and Linda Heidenberg for Trustee at Large. Jim Price, our Vice President, move up and become President. Ed gave me a saying to read after the message. It's a quote from Ellark Nost, who's a writer. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break, and all things can be mended. Not with time, as they say, but with intention. So go, love intentionally, extravagantly, and unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for light that is you. May it be safe from goblins, bad witches, and ghosts. So now, let us go forth and conquer the rest of the day. Go in peace.